This is just a real quick video for an owner who's got a Peugeot manifold, and he's asking how I drill and tap my manifolds for service. I just got a bunch of Peugeot manifolds in, and so I've been drilling and tapping them, prepping them for service. And like he's asking about the vacuum barbs in the back of the manifold. I pull out all the Peugeot barbs and I tap everything 1/8 MPT, because that gives me a standardized thread that I can then attach barbs, however I want. For example, from the factory, this is not ordinarily a vacuum port. It's ordinarily a mounting point for something. But I drill and tap it 1/8 MPT along with everything else, because I've found that this is a perfect place to put a 3/16 barb for the modulator valve for an automatic transmission, because it sticks out from the adapter plate. Like this barb is recessed up underneath, so it's harder to get to. But, put a barb there, it's easy to put the hose on and take the hose off. If this manifold was being used for a 5-speed application, I would obviously put a pipe plug in there. This is where I usually put a 3/8 barb for HVAC brake booster. Put a pipe plug here. That's how I configure, the back side of the manifold. This is where the rod that the progressive throttle linkage originally attached. From the factory, that hole is drilled all the way through to the intake runner, so it's got to be plugged. I tap it 1/8 MPT and put a pipe plug in it. This particular manifold is for a North American application. This is where EGR originally went. This hole is drilled all the way through to the 1-barrel plenum. I tap that 1/4 MPT and put a plug in that. This is where the heater core return line barb used to be. There's one on the back side of the manifold too. What Peugeot did was they routed the heater core return through the manifold as a preheat. You don't need that, and so I ordinarily just cut those barbs off. They're ordinarily just so badly corroded to the aluminum that they're impossible to remove, even with acetylene. Something new, ordinarily I just leave it cut off, but these manifolds here, I've tapped that hole 1/2 13. I got some 1/2 by 13 brass plugs on order. They haven't gotten here yet, but what that'll do is allow me to cap those off. And the reason I'm going to do that, the seam where the two halves of the mold came together is right here, and it occurred to me that if that seam was to ever leak, you would have a vacuum leak into the old coolant return passages. So obviously it won't be a bolt, it'll be a plug, but that's where that's going to go. And then that's the old 1-barrel port. You get a plate that covers that up. And then that's the adapter plate for the Motorcraft carburetor. That's where the throttle cable bracket attaches. But that's how I prepare a Peugeot manifold for service.